Greetings, YouTube. I'm going to link to an article today that deals with Portugal's policy for drugs. 12 years ago, they removed all criminal penalties for drug possession, and experts are pleased with the results. Overall, things have gotten much better in Portugal now that they're not throwing people in jail for the crime, quote-unquote, of drug possession. It's equivalent to like a parking fine if you get caught with drugs over a certain amount, and drugs under another amount, under a certain limit, are acceptable. And I endorse this particular policy. I would love to see drugs decriminalized in America. Treating drug use as a criminal rather than a medical issue is just bizarre to me. All it does is feed into the prison industrial complex. It's all about making somebody, private corporations, a whole lot of money. And they do this based on human suffering. Now, I don't think anyone's going to argue that drug addiction is bad for individuals and probably bad for society at large. Drug addiction can, in fact, ruin your life. However, you can get clean. And once you're clean, you can lead a healthy, normal, productive life. My father's an alcoholic. He's been sober for 20-something years, and he's doing just fine. But if you've been given a criminal record because you were an addict at one time in the past and arrested with drugs on you, that criminal record will haunt you forever. So what is the reasoning behind that? Okay, drug addiction is bad and ruin your life, but you can recover from it. So we'll arrest you, throw you in prison, ruin your life, and make sure that you carry around a big scarlet letter stamped on your forehead forever, so we ruin your life. That doesn't make sense. But on the policy of addiction itself, I do take a certain different slant on it. I have never liked the addiction is a disease model of thought. A disease is something that happens to you. You do not volunteer for a disease. I'm diabetic. I didn't want to be diabetic. It's a genetic predisposition in my family, and my crappy lifestyle helped trigger it off a little younger than it should have been. I've had relatives who've had cancer, a number of them. It killed at least one, and it would have killed a second, but he decided he didn't want to wait around for that. Cancer happens to you. That's a disease. You volunteer for an addiction. Now, I'm not saying that addiction isn't a real thing. It is. You take enough of a chemical after a certain point, your body begins to crave it and begins to need it to operate normally. I had a caffeine addiction at one point in my life. I was drinking something like 2+ liters of soda a day. I needed that caffeine. And when I finally came to realize that I didn't want to be addicted to caffeine, I stopped taking caffeine, and boy, was that unpleasant. So now I use caffeine as a drug. Take it very sparingly, about once a week. And I treat it just what it is, a drug. See my video, C is C. But I don't see addiction as a disease. I think that underscores the value of real disease. I think it's insulting to people who actually have diseases, because none of them volunteered for it. But you volunteered for an addiction. If you never took the chemical that you're addicted to, you'd never be addicted. You stepped at the plate, decided, I want to take this chemical. It was a decision you made. And you took enough of it until your body needed it. And now you're trapped. And you need help. And I think you should get that help. All the help you need to help kick that addiction, whether it's nicotine or heroin or meth. If you want to be free of that addiction, I think society should help you. I think society should also make sure that you have the mental health support to realize why you became an addict. But I don't think that addiction is a disease. I also don't think you can be addicted to behaviors. There are no people who are addicted to gambling, addicted to shopping, addicted to sex. Those are behaviors. Those are compulsive behaviors. Bad, negative things can happen if you do one thing too much. You can be compulsively obsessed with sex or shopping or gambling. But those aren't addictions. And again, that demeans the true people who are addicted to a chemical. So I have a different take on addiction than most people do. I realize that. This is somewhat unpopular on occasion, because I don't believe that the whole "you are helpless in the face of an addiction" policy of thought is useful for becoming clean, because you aren't helpless. You volunteered for that chemical. You can stop volunteering for that chemical. Is it hard? Yes. Do you need help? Yes. Should you be given the compassion, sympathy, and empathy that anyone who's in suffering and pain deserves? Yes, you should. But you volunteered for it. And that's different than a disease. And I think that's important to make that distinction, at least it is to me. You aren't helpless. You can do something about it. All you have to do is make the decision, I no longer want to be addicted to this thing. Get the help you need to make sure you know why you became an addict. And get the help you need to make sure you can become clean and stay clean. So, go read the article. The comment section that I'll be linking to is also quite interesting. And I am open to listening to people's thoughts on addiction. It's a complex topic, I don't deny that. But I am a survivor of living with an addict. I know what it's like on the inside. I know what it's like to come home from work one day and say to myself, you know, I really need a beer. And that being the last moment I ever had a beer. Because I knew what addiction was like. And I didn't want to be an addict. I decided I wasn't going to volunteer.